Hey guys, so today I am doing the chronic illness tag. I have been tagged by the wonderful Georgina Drake over at Georgina's Journey. So yeah, I'm just going to be doing a lot of talking and answering lots of questions all about my chronic illnesses. Let's start, shall we? The first question is, what are you diagnosed with? I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which I'm trying to say faster and faster every time I say it, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I'm hypermobile type, and I also have chronic migraine, which is kind of linked. I have other mini diagnoses, but they're all linked into the big EDS bubble, if you like. Number 2 is, what do you do at night when you can't sleep? I tend to get back up. I find that's always easier than just lying in bed doing nothing, but it depends why I'm awake. If it's due to pain, then I just kind of distract myself, even though I know it's not good to watch telly in bed or look at my phone, or but it gives me a distraction away from the pain when I definitely can't sleep. Yeah, otherwise I get up and walk around. At uni, I go into my kitchen and find people to chat to. There's normally people there in the middle of the night. Number 3, what is the worst side effect you've had from medication? I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had too many bad side effects. I mean, when I've been on different drugs in the past, like tramadol, like they made me feel weird. And amitriptyline makes you feel like a zombie every day of your life. When I was on that, but I think duloxetine has been the most recent bad side effect, where it's just basically, it was meant to help with my headaches and messed with my POTS so much. It was like I wasn't even taking medication. I couldn't get out of bed, and it was literally like I had started my POTS journey all over again just from this medication. Question 4 is, how has it impacted your mental health? And this is a tough one. Like, obviously, having a chronic illness is so hard on your mental health, and people don't necessarily realise that impact, especially when it's an invisible condition and you're not believed. I think that's one of the hardest things on your mental health. I mean, there's definitely the impact of not having as much of a social life and losing friends, and the loneliness. I think that's sometimes what gets to me the most, especially on a Saturday night when I'm having to be at home in bed and other people are off doing whatever they're doing. But yeah, I think as well, my anxiety definitely got worse. It was actually just after I'd been diagnosed. I think part of me was amazed. I finally had this validation that what I'd been going through for the last 2 years was finally, someone finally had words for it. But equally, I'd had such bad experiences with doctors in the past that every time I would see a new doctor or just see a new family member or person that didn't know, I'd feel so worried that they wouldn't believe me. And sometimes you believe that yourself, and that's the worst thing. You think, oh, lots of other people are much sicker than I am. Even when I was having my surgeries, I was like, am I really? Like, is this really wrong? Like, it's a horrible feeling to not be believed, and that really impacts you. Number 5, describe your social life. Ha! There's not much of one these days. My boyfriend and I go to the cinema and that when I see him, and I try my best to do things at uni, but it is very difficult, especially being at uni when I'm using literally all my energy just to do my classes and my work. To try and go out in any capacity afterwards is difficult. We do in our flat like to have a nice movie night, so that's a little bit more my speed, but my dancing days are definitely over, and that is equalled by the fact that this new year, 0 plans. Double 0 plans. Number 6 is, what's the hardest thing to do when you're flaring? I think it depends what the flare is for me. whether it's pain or whether it's POTS. Because if my POTS is flaring, it normally stops me in my tracks because I literally just cannot get out of bed. Like, getting out of bed is the hardest thing to do. Standing up is the hardest thing to do. If it's my pain, I tend to get up and try and carry on as best I can. Just because when you're in pain, sometimes staying in bed makes you feel worse because you're just there alone with your pain. But obviously, like, it depends on the capacity of the flare. I find distraction is one of the best ways of helping my pain, because it's much harder to focus on it if you've got something to distract you. And I do try every day to get up and go into uni no matter what, and that's why even before I went back to uni I started looking after dogs, because it meant that I had something every day that I had to get up for, no matter how good or bad I was feeling. And that's kind of what pacing is about, because the boom and bust thing, you don't want to get into that scenario where you're doing loads on your good days and nothing on your bad days, because it's a vicious circle. Favourite comfort food? My favourite comfort food used to be macaroni and cheese. And obviously, when you ditch dairy and you ditch gluten, nothing quite comes close. I've had a couple of attempts, but nothing's ever got close to the real thing. So I think one of my favourite food in general, which is definitely a comfort food, is a really hearty lentil bolognese with brown rice pasta. The recipe is up on my blog. Well, that's a slightly older recipe, it needs updating. But it is so good. It's just so rich and nourishing and flavoursome and warm. That's what I absolutely love. Other things that are my comfort food, definitely Livia's Kitchen Bicky Bombs and Deliciously Ella cacao and almond energy balls. They are my little treat comfort foods. And always a pack of Walker's Ready Salted Crisps, because if I'm feeling potsy, it always tends to make me feel better. Tell us a valuable lesson you've learned from being sick. Ooh. It's a really good question. I mean, a lot. You definitely learn what's important. Your life changes incredibly when you get sick, and when you know you aren't going to get better. So I think, yeah, knowing what's important and what's important to you, you find out exactly what you want to do and where you want to go, and what you want to use the limited amount of energy you have in doing. You know, it definitely can bring people closer as well. Yeah, I've got a lot of people that have sodded off since I got sick, which isn't nice, but it's also brought me much closer to the people in my life, especially my mum. We've got a much stronger relationship than before. And yeah, I got back to uni, and I go to uni every day with a purpose and with a thought of, this is what I want to do in my life, and this is why I'm here. So whenever I feel lonely, I can make sure I say to myself, your degree is what's important, the rest will come. The other thing I've learned that's a really valuable lesson, I mean, I learnt it before because Ellen is queen, but what's become even more obvious since being sick is just being kind to everyone. Like, this isn't just a sick people thing, this is just in general, but one of my favourite quotes is, everyone's fighting a battle that you know nothing about. and that's obviously very clear and something that I'd not necessarily thought of before I became sick myself, and I think it's an important lesson for everyone to learn. 3 things that you miss that were taken from you by your illnesses. Sports. I used to be a badminton player on the uni team, and that was one of the ways that I really used to get some of my anger and frustration out. And obviously there's a social aspect of being in a team as well, and doing sport is something that I really, really miss. Doing little physio exercises aren't quite the same as a good old game of badminton or kicking around a football. The second one kind of comes into the same boat, and that is dancing. One of the things I really, really miss in life is just the ability to have a good old boogie. Like, I'm no kind of trained dancer in the slightest, but just being able to jump around and have fun, and on the dance floor, great music, that's something I really miss. I mean, you'd think another one would be food, with the way I've had to change my diet, like no sugar and no alcohol and no caffeine and no gluten or dairy. But okay, no, I lie. I don't miss the sugar. I don't miss it. I don't miss the gluten. Don't miss. I was never really a drinker or a coffee drinker, so don't miss the caffeine or the alcohol. I miss the cheese. I miss the really good camembert at Christmas and the brie. I miss good cheese. That's the third thing. Good cheese. How old were you when you started experiencing symptoms? I mean, when you get diagnosed, especially with EDS, you can look back on your life and see all the times that EDS was responsible for your pain and your fatigue at a very young age. My mum always used to blame the vegetarianism. It was never the vegetarianism on the fatigue front, and the clumsiness, you know. So I was very young, and I used to experience these awful growing pains in my legs when I was a kid, and that's what people would call them. It would just be growing pains. But I was, you know, they were on fire and I was in tears, and that's what I remember, and I get that feeling now. So it's those little things throughout your childhood that you can suddenly link back, but I didn't really, again with the headaches, I had those very young, and they got worse and more frequent, but it was really when I, like 18, it was my 19th birthday hit, when I started realising this is not normal, this is not okay. And then just before my 20th birthday, that was when POTS hit. My 20th birthday I spent throwing up in the restaurant loos, and then, you know, my CSF leak had obviously hit when I was kind of 17, 18, and I hadn't realised, and then yeah, I finally got diagnosed when I'd just turned, yeah, I got diagnosed the February after I turned 20. So it has been nearly 2 years already. Crazy.